the way you talk to yourself matters. And if you're telling yourself you're a piece of garbage every single day, then you're going to make choices that reflect that because that's how you feel about yourself. So I know you've struggled with this yourself in recent years. What have been some of your best practices to know what you're saying to yourself and how it's impacting you, and then breaking those negative thought loops to be able to change it and start talking to yourself in a more compassionate way?
So let's break this down for everybody. Because what you just said is how you talk to yourself matters. And that is so true, right? And so there are a couple elements to getting control over your negative self-talk, breaking it apart, and replacing it with a new way of speaking to yourself. And so the first step is self-awareness, because I am willing to bet my mortgage on the fact that you have no idea just how negative and relentless and horrible your self-talk is. You're so used to it, you've tuned it out. So the first step in changing from trashing yourself and bashing yourself to learning how to have your default become positive is to become aware of just how nasty, disgusting, and fucking awful your default way of talking to yourself is. And that's the hardest part. So that's the bad news. Here's the good news. You can change this. Like, yeah, it's not going to happen overnight, but through repetition, in less than 66 days, you can change how you feel about everything by changing how you speak to yourself. And, that's not just some dumb platitude that Doug and I have pulled out of thin air. When researchers study every single skill and every single behavior change that you could take on in the new year or at any moment in your life, the number one behavior change or skill that has the biggest impact on your happiness and your fulfillment is being kinder to yourself. And so if you could become aware of how often you trash yourself, and then we're going to teach you to interrupt it, and then we're going to teach you to replace it with something that is kind, you will see your whole life change. Your whole life change.
Right. Absolutely. And I think you brought up a really good thing in that you have to become aware of it, and you have to realize that sometimes, like, the way you talk to yourself, like, believe it or not, it does impact us, and whether we want to admit it or not. I think sometimes people, when they're feeling so down about themselves, they have a hard time admitting that something in their life is going wrong, because they're already feeling so low that the idea of even having something bring them even down lower, like, scares the hell out of them, right?
Yeah, so let's break this apart. Let's role play here. Okay? So let's say you are what was the sport that you played as a kid?
I tried to play all sports. I wasn't very good, but I would say the sport that I was the most consistent with was basketball.
Okay. So little Doug is on the basketball court, and there's a foul, and Doug is the person that is selected to shoot the free throw. And little Doug steps up to the free throw line. And then all of a sudden they call a timeout. And you come running back to the huddle. What would be the most empowering and encouraging and motivating thing that your coach or teammates could do or say in order to help you perform and feel your best when you step onto that line?
Like, I believe in you and you're going to make it.
I believe in you and you're going to make it. You got this. And then they send you back into that game with a high five, right? How would that make you feel, little 9-year-old Doug?
I'd feel pretty confident.
Right. Now, how would little 9-year-old Doug feel if, when you came back to that huddle and you're about to go do this free throw, that your teammates are like, "Oh, him? He's a piece of shit. He screws everything up. Are you kidding me? What? What? Oh my God. Well, he shouldn't be the one that does." How would that make little Doug feel?
It would probably, obviously make me feel like I'm not going to make the shot. So why even bother?
Correct. What you say to yourself matters.
Right.
And we understand that from a common sense perspective. But somewhere along the line, we have all stopped saying, "You're going to make it. You got this." And we've started saying, "You're a piece of shit. You're not good enough. Why even bother?" And when you send yourself into a conversation, into a presentation, into even typing up an email, when you start your day by saying, "I look terrible. I screwed up again yesterday. I hate my life," that's not going to motivate you to change it. And so your sense of feeling like the effort is worth it begins and ends with how encouraging, supportive, and kind you are to yourself. And, we can also take this little role play exercise and go, well, let's say you miss the shot and you come back to the sideline again. What could your coach say, or what would you want your coach to say to help you get your head back in the game and to brush off the mistake that you just made?
Like, you did your best, Doug. You'll get them next time. Like, get back in there. And I have a feeling you're going to be a positive contribution to the team.
Yeah, that's right. Shake it off. You did
Shake
your
it off.
best. You're going to do it next time. This is you win some, you lose some. Let's go. Now I need you to win some, right? I believe in you.
I think one of the role plays that we could maybe go into that I think is pretty common with people is that they acknowledge that they maybe have to start talking to themselves better, but whatever they start to say that's positive, there's this cognitive dissonance because they just don't believe it. So
Right.
how do you get somebody who for the last 10 to 15 years has just been completely destroying themselves self-talk wise, begin to build some consistency with that, so now that becomes a new habit that they're talking to themselves in a more positive way and they actually believe it instead of just saying it?
This is a phenomenal and really smart question. If you have been trashing yourself for 10 years, you do have a cognitive dissonance. You don't even hear it anymore
Right.
because that negative, "you're a piece of shit, you're not good enough, you screw everything up," first began as something you said. Then it became a belief. Your brain started to align with the belief and it starts to become your identity. I always screw things up. And I want you to hear me loud and clear. If you are on social media and you ever go to the Discover page on Instagram or on TikTok or on any platform, that social media platform has put together a mosaic of content that aligns with everything that you consume in your feed. That social media platform on the Discover page has assembled a world on social media that looks just like the stuff you're always looking at. Your brain works exactly the same way. One of the reasons why it is so important for you to identify how often you are trashing yourself or being pessimistic or you are being negative in your attitude and unkind to yourself is because as long as you think and speak that shit, the Discover page of your mind presents a world that matches to that negative dialogue. So that's why this is critical. The second thing that you need to do, because you're unconscious to it, right, is there are two things that are going to work because just trying to speak kindly often doesn't work because you have so trained your mind that you think you're not good enough, that saying, "I'm good enough," doesn't work because your brain literally looks at you like, "Who are you talking to?" Like, because I can't be you. So there's two things that will help you based on the research. The first one is journaling exercises, because there is something that happens when you create a new habit where every single morning before you look at that social media, you open up a blank page. And the way that I journal is very simple. I always start by writing down 5 things that I want. And I just let them flow through me. What are 5 things that I really want? And it might be something small. It might be that, I want a really cool new pair of sneakers. It might be something big. I really want to feel happy. It might be something that is a feeling. Like, this pandemic has kicked the shit out of everybody. I am not immune from the feeling of burnout or the feeling of languishing, the feeling of disconnection even from self that we can all feel when you're isolated for this long and you're remote for this long and you're stressed out for this long. And so allowing yourself to write down 5 things that you want. I want to feel like myself again. It allows the things that you desire to flow through the self-doubt and through the negativity and through all the crap that buries it and pushes it down, and it allows it to come to the surface. And the writing it down is important because your mind is paying attention. That discover page that your mind creates pays attention to what you say is important. And if you begin a new habit of just starting your day with a blank piece of paper and writing down 5 things that you want every day, it can be the same things every day. It can be different things every day. You just allow yourself to do this. You will start to build the skill of being connected to what you desire. You will start to develop a skill of tuning out the self-doubt and tuning into what you want. And this is really important because your brain is paying attention, and it doesn't require you to talk to yourself. It just write it on a piece of paper. The next thing that you're going to do, step 2, is write down why you want these things. Because if you have a negative dialogue, Doug, you have for decades talked yourself out of the things that you want. You have filled your heart and your soul and your mind with all the reasons why it's never going to happen. And so by starting every day with a new habit, write down 5 things that you want and then write down why you want these things. You are developing a skill of listening to what you want instead of listening to the self-doubt. That's step 1. That's one thing that you can do to fight decades of negative self-talk. The second thing that you can do is every morning after you brush your teeth, add a high 5 in the mirror to your reflection to your morning routine. That will have a shockingly powerful impact on your negative self-talk. And the reason why it does is because your brain watches you do it, and you only give a high 5 to somebody that you believe in, that you're rooting for, that you're kind to, and that you want to see win. And what we've found based on researching this simple habit, adding a high 5 to the mirror every single morning, you don't say a word. As stupid as it sounds, just high 5 the mirror. What we have found after researching this for 18 months and having 153,000 people from 91 countries do this for 5 days is that it has a profound effect on how you speak to and how you see yourself, because it is an action that demonstrates to your brain that you care about yourself and you support yourself. And so those are 2 physical things that you can do to start to shut down and fight back against the critic that is programmed into your head.
I think it's amazing that you've kind of put together this high 5 habit, but also you invite people to do deeper work as well. It's not as simple as just saying, "Hey, give yourself a high 5 and then your life's going to be fixed." It's like, no, you encourage people to do other things. You're talking about developing some things called like self-awareness, where you're actually becoming aware of like what it is that's bothering you, what it is that you want. And then also like writing down like why, I think, is so important, because I'm a trainer, so I see this a lot in the fitness space where people don't put an emotional connection to their fitness goals. They say, "Oh, I just want to lose weight." And it's like, that's not what they want. People want to be able to look at themselves in the mirror and be proud of their health. That's the emotional connection, right? People want to be able to carry the groceries up and down their steps when they get older. They want to be able to walk their daughter down the aisle. They want to be able to play with their kids when they get older. Like those are the real reasons. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Can I share something? Because
Yeah.
I think that's a wildly important point, Doug, and it is completely missed by most of us. And I'm going to tell two stories. So, I every single morning, as part of my morning routine, I write down 5 things that I want in my journal, and then I write down why. And what's been really interesting about adding this practice to my morning routine is that I didn't realize, because of the cognitive dissonance, I'm just so used to feeling like I don't deserve to be happy, or that something's wrong, or focusing on what's wrong, or beating myself up, that I was completely unaware of how much I was silently suffering in my life. It just was the autopilot mode I was on, to focus on what wasn't working, to push myself relentlessly, to point out what I was doing wrong. That it wasn't until I started writing down 5 things that I wanted and the why I wanted these things, it was really important. Because at the bottom of every why that you come up with is the singular thing that every human being wants. And that is, I just want to feel like I'm seen, that I'm happy, that I deserve to have these things just because I want them, that I am enough of a person for simply being alive, that it's okay for me to just want to feel better and happier. And, when you talk about, for example, you just mentioned this example that you're a trainer and you have people come into the gym, and just saying, I want to get in better shape is not enough. If you want to tap into the internal desire to change, go deep and get to the heart of the embarrassing thing that you don't want to say. Because saying, I need to lower my cholesterol, that's not going to get you to have the force inside you to push yourself out of bed on a cold morning when it's 7 degrees, like it was in Vermont this morning, and get out of bed and go exercise. But if you say, I haven't had my shirt off in public in 15 years, and I am tired of feeling like the most out of shape person. I am tired of my own behavior being a form of rejection. And I want to get in shape because I deserve to be proud of myself. And I'm sick of feeling like shit. And I want a 6-pack because I want to take my shirt off and I want to feel great about my body and I want to experience an amazing orgasm. That will motivate you.
You're so right. And a lot of times people will come to me and I'll ask them like 3 or 4 whys. Like, so if somebody says, I'll walk you through this, somebody says, I want to lose weight. Well, why? Well, because I'm just not fitting right in my clothes. And I'll say, well, why does that bother you so much? And it's like, well, it's like my belt's starting to get a little tight and I feel uncomfortable when I'm going out. And I'm like, well, why does that bother you so much? And then normally they'll get like an emotional response. They'll be like, like, I'll come home and just bawl my eyes out because all of my friends go to the gym, they work out, they're in shape, and I just can't seem to do it. And boom, there you go. And if I were to ask another why, I mean, what I normally would get is like, this is it. They're like, I'm just so tired of feeling unworthy. I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not enough. I'm so tired of being unhealthy, even though I should be doing it to take care of my family. And that's where you can really start to attach emotion to changing, because when you don't want to go to the gym, it's not like, I'm not going to the gym, I only want to lose weight. It's like, no, I better go to the gym because of what I told my trainer I wanted to do, or what I told myself I wanted to do. I want to do this for my family. I want to do this for my self-esteem. I want to do this for me because I deserve it. Game changes, right?
Yeah. You're not going to feel motivated or inspired to do the work if you're bashing yourself and saying, I need to lose weight, I'm a piece of shit.
Right.
But if you say, no, I deserve to be happy, and I know this is going to make a difference, you are building the skill of self empowerment. You see, it's a skill to push yourself through the resistance that you're going to feel when you have to create a new habit. It's a skill to tune out the self doubt and to push yourself and do it anyway. It is a skill to listen to a more positive voice in your head and tune out the negative one that you've been listening to for 20 years. And so instead of thinking in terms of habits and all these kind of patterns of behavior, I want you to think about the fact that what habits create in your life is they create skills. And self awareness is a skill. Pushing yourself to take action when you're afraid or not feeling like it, that's a skill. Being kind to yourself, that's a skill. And when you have something as a skill in your life, you can use that skill to help you in every area of your life.
The psychology supports that. Look at all the books written about habits, whether it's B.J. Fogg, Tiny Habits, or James Clear, or Stephen Covey, or Charles Duhigg. They all talk about making these trim tab adjustments in their lives. You're right on. Mel, I just dedicated my 30-year career to the leadership development industry, and my first book was called Management Mess to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to Become the Leader You Would Follow. And it did extraordinarily well, mainly because, much like you, okay, not 2 million copies, but much like you, my book touched a nerve in terms of sort of the underbelly of leadership and how hard leadership is, and that it's important to own your mess, because then you can make it safe for others to own theirs and teach through your mistakes. I would argue that you are one of the lead thought leaders that has ushered in the safety of having the conversation around anxiety and trauma and your challenges, and really helping to make vulnerability an actual parenting, spousal, friend, leadership competency. You talk frequently and openly on your social media and in your books about your own struggle with anxiety and panic disorders, and I don't mean to put you on the spot for that, but is there anything you would follow up with that would help our audience of millions of people around the world that perhaps have a colleague or a spouse or their boss or an employee, child that perhaps is facing some of those issues, or they themselves as well, that would maybe give everybody a light and some inspiration this morning?
Yeah, of course. So I would tackle it in two different ways. I'd tackle it in two different ways when you're dealing with somebody at work, especially if you're the manager or the leader at work, and somebody in your personal life. And the reason why I say that is because I think it's really important to be compassionate and understanding and supportive of, everybody in your life. But I'm not out to turn leaders and managers or anybody into a therapist. Because the fact of the matter is, when somebody's struggling, whether they're struggling with anxiety or depression, or they're struggling with issues related to trauma or PTSD, or heck, they're just struggling because we're still living through a global pandemic, and every single human being's nervous system right now has been switched into a state of fight or flight. And so, everybody, after 2 years of this, Scott, is living in a condition in their bodies that human beings are not designed to live in. We all feel emotionally taxed. We all feel the fatigue from being on Zoom conference calls all day long. We all feel the giant, oh, are you kidding me? As we see the virus continue to mutate and closings and this and that. And so at this moment, what leaders need to know is your team is emotionally, physically, and spiritually gassed. What they need from you is they need more appreciation. They need to be given a little bit more trust. And what I'm going to say about that, and I've been hammering this in speeches. I've been hammering this because I believe that every single company had the exact same response when the pandemic hit. And it is a very typical response because it's a response that tracks to the normal anxiety response. So as we unpack anxiety, Scott, I'm going to talk about a bunch of different things, but I promise we will end up in a place where there's lots of takeaway. So anxiety, first and foremost, everybody, it's a very important thing to have in life. Yes, you heard Mel Robbins say that. Anxiety is really important because all that anxiety is anxiety is an internal alarm system that is hardwired in your nervous system. And that alarm system has one job. The alarm system called anxiety has the job of making you pay attention. That's it. There is some kind of threat, some kind of uncertainty. When anxiety races through your body, you come alive and you go into a state of hyperfocus. Your nervous system switches into your sympathetic nervous system. You immediately go on edge. Your spidey senses come up. Your prefrontal cortex engages. Your heart starts to race. All of this, by the way, tied to evolution to keep you safe. Anxiety is a good thing when there is an actual threat.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's say, Scott, that you and I are driving down the road and we're chatting up a storm and we're driving, to go do a speech or whatever. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a semi truck cuts right into our lane and you have to swerve, right, to get out of the way. As that semi truck, Scott, cuts into our lane, what do you feel in your body?
A rush of adrenaline, fear for my life. I need to take immediate control over my safety because that driver doesn't know I'm alive or he wouldn't have cut in my lane.
Yeah, like immediately anxiety rips through your body, and anxiety is serving a purpose. It's sounding the alarm so that you stop talking to me and you pay attention. And all of a sudden your brain takes over, you swerve without even thinking about it, and your heart races, and all the blood runs to your major organs so that you can go into a state of hyperfocus. The reason why people feel nervous or anxious or excited before a test or before a speech is because you're going into a state of hyperfocus. Anxiety, that feeling in your body, is now making you align with what you're about to do so you can focus on it and perform. In the example that I just gave you, anxiety served a purpose. And here's what's interesting. As the truck pulls away and you kind of pull back into your lane, what happens in your body now that the truck is gone and we're driving down the road safely?
In my body or my wife's body?
In your body.
Well, in my body, I would, that anxiety probably stays for a little while, not for an hour, but probably, 45 seconds or so as I begin to calm down and kind of put it into context, and we're safe, we're alive, it's not going to happen again probably immediately. So I probably recover pretty quickly, but there's a lingering effect.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the 45 seconds, because it is less than 90 seconds that most people switch from one emotional state to the other when there's intellectual context. So your body starts to slow down and it goes from the on-edge state, alert state, into what's called the parasympathetic state, which is your kind of resting, relaxed state, in about 90 seconds, because your brain sees the truck leave and your brain goes, oh, no threat. The problem for people today, and this is true of everybody on your team, is that we have been living in a heightened state of uncertainty. And every single person on the planet, their nervous system right now is either flipped into the fight or flight mode of feeling on edge, or it's like a trigger, immediately flips into it. And so the normal things that somebody wouldn't stress out, they're super stressed out. And this is important to understand, because I want you to, as a leader, to think about, first, let's talk about work. Assume that most people are at the end of their rope. They're trying the best that they can. They are burning the candle at both ends. They're having a hard time focusing and concentrating. And they're feeling uncertain and on edge. Because even if their work life is good, there's something going on with their kids at college. There's something going on with their kids in the high school. There's something going on with somebody in their family. And, the spike in this sense of anxiety, the spike that we're seeing in terms of people's mental health is extraordinary. And I'm sure you're hearing the same thing from corporations that I'm hearing, which is that the number one concern that people have right now at the highest level in every single company, whether they're publicly traded or they're a small family business, is the well-being of their employees. And so one thing that you can do is, number one, you can encourage people to take time off. Number two, you can consciously, as a leader, make a strategic and intentional decision to move out of the mode that your company has been in for probably 2 years, because there are 3 phases to this pandemic that has impacted every corporation on the planet and every leader on the planet. Phase number 1 was life as it used to be, right? Because when the pandemic first hit, it was sort of like, oh my gosh, what's changing about life as it used to be? What life as it used to be? We're going to go back to the way life used to be. Phase number 2 was full on crisis. Oh my gosh, we're in this.
Yeah.
And what you saw is you saw an anxiety response from every single company on the planet, because we had to. Everything got turned upside down. The rules got rewritten overnight. Everybody had to pivot and to innovate and to switch and to innovate. Like, it was incredible. And there was so much amazingness that came out of it. There's going to be, when we look back on this period, this is going to be one of the most rapid periods of innovation and disruption in a very positive way when it comes to business operations, the way that people work, like all kinds of stuff. But one of the disruptions that has been horrible for people is that companies immediately jumped to nonstop video conference calls. And what has happened for human beings who are working hybrid or working remote is that people feel like they need to always be online. And there are lots of companies that also still have a policy 2 years later that your camera is required to be on. This is a horrible thing to be doing to people. And the reason why it's a horrible thing to be doing to people is, number one, it communicates mistrust, which makes somebody who's already stressed out feel even worse. But number two, based on the brain science, here's what we know. If you're on a video conference call and you're staring at yourself, having to stare at yourself activates this part of your brain, Scott. When the prefrontal cortex is engaged, the rate at which you drain the fuel in your brain increases dramatically. The reason why it is so difficult for everybody to be productive right now, for everybody to focus, the reason why people feel more anxious, the reason why people feel more distracted, the reason why people feel like, my gosh, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I feel like I need 3 martinis and a nap. Like, I have 4 more hours for the rest of the day, or 10. The reason is because you are having to work in an environment that is triggering stress and anxiety and being on edge. Staring at yourself all day on camera is draining the fuel in your brain. And companies reacted so like panic mode that they haven't pulled back yet and stepped into phase 3 of the pandemic, which is, this is the new reality. Let's stop pretending there is some sort of milestone that is out in the future that's going to solve all this. And let's get strategic and let's get intentional about how we're going to work, because everything in the company can't be important or else nothing is. And every meeting can't be 50 people on a Zoom call because nobody can get work done. And we need to go back to getting intentional and strategic about what's important and going back to the basics of making sure people's weekly jobs are aligned with what matters. And we need to allow people and trust them to get their work done. That's one thing that you can do as a leader. Less Zoom calls, more appreciation, and cameras off. That's going to help people a ton when it comes to anxiety at work. The other thing that will help people a ton is triple down on appreciation. What I've figured out in researching the high five habit and having 145,000 people from 91 countries go through a 5-day online challenge that I led about the high five habit, In 5 days, Scott, not a single person reported that this high five habit didn't work. And what I've learned in researching the power of appreciation and developing habits of encouragement is that the most motivating force on the planet is to feel appreciated, to feel like somebody sees you and hears you and actually appreciates you. And I know that you talk about this a lot. People, and we're talking about the Great Resignation, right? And companies make the mistake of thinking that people are leaving organizations because they're looking for better compensation. That's not true. People leave organizations. There was a huge McKinsey study that proved this recently. They leave organizations because they don't feel valued or appreciated, and they don't feel like they belong. And so this should be a giant red flag for every leader out there. You've got the Great Resignation. You've got people really starting to think about what they value and what matters to them. You've got a hybrid work environment where it's going to take more intentionality to make people feel like they belong and to make sure that they feel appreciated. And so you've got to make sure that this is priority number one as you head into this next year, that the focus is on how do I make sure that people's work is getting recognized, that people feel visible, and that I am pointing out all the things they're doing right instead of harping on the thing that they're doing wrong. That is something that you can do that goes way beyond the corporate programs that people put in place. It's the basic blocking and tackling of making sure that everybody that reports to you feels appreciated by you. And it takes work. It takes a lot of work to build that as a muscle as a leader.
So the other day, I managed to get to a yoga class 30 minutes early. The reason why that happened was not because I was really organized. It was because my son actually had chorus practice at school, so he had to be at school earlier. So I got to the studio earlier, and class normally starts at 8:45, and I normally get there at 8:44, 8:45, 8:46, right in that zone. This day, a couple days ago, I arrived at like 8:14. And so I go down the stairs to the yoga studio and I get up to the door and it's locked. It's dark. There's no one there. The reason why nobody was there is they weren't even open yet. That's how early I was. Now, here's what happened that really struck me. The first thought that popped in my mind, here I was dressed in yoga gear. I got my yoga mat. I got my little journal because I'm going to be early and I can journal on my mat and be all yogi in the studio. The first thought that popped into my mind is, oh, you should just bail. Don't even go. Go across the street to Pete's and have a cup of coffee. Forget this yoga thing. I don't feel like it. I cannot believe how fast my own mind contaminated my thoughts. And I doubt you understand how often your mind is looking around and talking to you and spotting things that are negative and arguing against the things that you know you want to be doing. I mean, it was just a moment. Walk down the stairs, see that it's dark. I don't think, oh, great, I'm the first one here. That means I'll be the first one in the door. That means I can get the spot by the door in the back of the class that I really like. I didn't think, oh, I could sit here and I could journal right here and just wait. I didn't think, oh, I could make a phone call. I thought, I'll bail on this commitment I made to myself. I'll just bail on it. I'll just, screw it. So why am I telling you this? Because our minds are so negative. I don't care how positive you are, and I am an incredibly positive person. I don't care how much mindset work you do. You have to continue to do it over and over and over again. It's not that your mind jumps to the negative and constantly sees the problems and the obstacles in front of you. It's that you don't even realize how often it happens and how often it hijacks you and takes you off course. So it's essential that you're paying attention. It's essential that when your mind talks negative smack talk to you, that you smack it back and you say no thanks, or you insert something positive. And, I actually did not intend for this to be like some sort of video to push you to something, but that does remind me that I did an entire course called Mindset Reset. It's free, by the way. More than 400,000 people have taken it. It's 30 videos. If you want to check it out, you go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset, and we'll email you the workbook and you can watch all the videos for free. I'm not selling you anything. I'm a daytime talk show host, so I'm not selling you a course. But I'm telling you this because even the woman that created Mindset Reset, even the person that is training you on how you redirect your thoughts and do what I call think this and not that, my mind still jumps to the negative. My mind still argues against me, which is why one of the most important things that you need to do if you want to live a positive life, if you want a happy life, if you want your relationships to be stronger, if you want things to come more easily and naturally to you, you have to continually train your mind. So what did I do that morning? I basically was like, shut the up. And I sat down and I opened up my journal and I didn't listen to it. And sometimes that's the most powerful thing that you can do when your mind gets negative. You just tell it to shut up and you move on. I wanted to talk to you about a mindset trick, okay? For those of you that don't know me, I struggled with anxiety for literally 30 years. And so do our 3 children. They've all struggled with anxiety at various moments. And my daughter used to have this word for it. It's called the what if loop. That when you get trapped in your mind, you start thinking about what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this goes wrong? What if I fail and somebody critiques me? What if this person judges me? What if that happens? What if they say this and I don't know what to say? What if my friends judge me? What if they think I'm weird? What if they think I'm silly? You can get trapped spinning what if thoughts all the time, okay? And so I want to give you a super simple trick that you can use to interrupt the what if loop. And it comes from both the research that I've done about having a high five attitude and empowering and encouraging yourself. And the reason why having a high five attitude is so important is because when you believe in yourself and your ability to face anything, when you believe in your ability through your attitude and your actions to have a positive impact on anything that you're dealing with in life, that's the secret to success. It doesn't remove the obstacles. It doesn't change the circumstances that you're dealing with. It changes you and your ability to face those circumstances and tap into the resilience and the courage and the confidence and the strength that is in you that is waiting to help you. That's what a high five attitude is. It's realistic optimism. Oh, gosh, okay, there's a gentleman walking in front of our car. Okay. So I was talking with Jenny, who's got her camera aimed at me. Jenny Maloney, if you need a phenomenal photographer. Hussein, who is my favorite person, sorry, Tev, to drive. And our COO and my fabulous sister-in-law, Christine. So we were sitting here talking. Jenny literally decided 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, about a month ago.
About a month ago. That where she was living was sucking her soul dry.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been thinking about it and thinking about it. How many of you have been thinking about, is this the right place for me to live? Should I move? Should I try somewhere new? Even if it's just like, I don't like this apartment or this neighborhood or my roommates. Have you experienced this? I have been experiencing this for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Every time I would take off and land in a new city, I would allow my mind to wander. Could I live here? Could I live here? Is it Austin, Texas? Is it San Diego? Is it Nashville? You know, is it Portland, Maine? I even considered Portland, Maine.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's cool. So she literally decided 4 weeks ago to honor that feeling inside of her. And the second that you started honoring that feeling, like, maybe I should move, even though my family lives here, even though people are going to be upset, maybe we need a change. When you feel depleted, when you feel like every morning you wake up and you don't want to high five your life, that's a f***ing signal. That means you got to dig deep and figure out what you really want. And you got to do some soul searching, and you got to find your strength and your courage to face and be honest with yourself about what's not working and make a change. So that's exactly what Jenny did. But when you start to get honest with yourself that you're not happy with your life, any aspect of it, you don't want to high five that relationship. You don't want to high five your friend group. You don't want to high five where you live. You don't want to high five that job. That's when the storm kicks in your mind. Because then you go, well, what if I'm wrong? And what if I don't have new friends? And what if it doesn't work? And what if this? And what if that? And what if the other thing? What if I don't sell my house? What if my kids don't like the new school? What if there's some other things that you had about it?
What if I don't find somewhere to live? What if my house doesn't sell? What if I'm making a big mistake?
Yeah,
You know,
what if I'm making a big mistake?
And I was terrified.
Terrified.
And I thought that was my gut trying to tell me something, but no, any big change is freaking terrifying.
Yes, terrifying. Just expect that, okay? So if you don't high five your life right now, that's all the sign that you need to change. Then your mind is going to kick into what if mode to keep you paralyzed where you are, because your mind does not want you to change. It thinks change is scary. This is where you're going to use this little high five attitude flip. And I'm going to let Jenny tell it to you. What is the flip? Just tell them what that flip is. Instead of going, what if this is a mistake? What if this goes wrong? What if it doesn't work out? What do you say instead?
What if everything does work out?
What if everything works out?
I know it's so simple, but it's so profound.
What? Can you imagine if you went through life thinking, what if it works out for me? What if I make this big change and I actually love my new life? What if I start exercising and I love it? What if I decide to move and it all works out for me? What if I start this side business and it works out? Imagine placing a bet on yourself. That is how you have a high five attitude. You place a bet on yourself, on your dreams, on what you want, and it can be as simple as swatting away that bullshit. What if it fails? What if it doesn't work? What if my friends judge me? What if I'm unhappy? Look, there are very few things that are, I know, I'm really red. It's because I'm sort of having a hot flash right now. I keep it very real. There's no filter that I can have. I'm 53 years old. This is the kind of that happens to me. But what if, all those what ifs, you don't know if they're true or not. Are they serving you? What if it doesn't work? What if that? What if the other thing? What if, ooh, scaredy cat, paralyzed? Do you like that? How about you flip it? How about you get a high five attitude on? What if it all works out for me? What if it's hard in the beginning? And then a month from now, I look up and go, holy shit, this was the best decision I ever made. What if quitting your job is the scariest thing, but it all works out for you? What if ending that toxic relationship makes you feel scared and you dread being alone again? But what if 2 months from now, when you invest in building back a relationship with yourself, you can look in the mirror and you go, wow, it's all working out for me. That was exactly what needed to happen. What if the heartbreak that you're dealing with or the pain that you're dealing with, what if it's all just a dot on the map of your life connecting you to something amazing? What if it's preparing you for something? What if it all works out for you? You know, betting against yourself makes you feel miserable. Staying in situations that you don't want to high five, that make you feel depleted, it's the reason why you're not happy and fulfilled. I want you to start putting a bet on you, on your intuition, on your happiness, on what your heart and soul are screaming at you to do. If you can't high five every aspect of your life, I want you to stand in front of that mirror and start to get honest with yourself. I want you to get a piece of paper out and put a pen in your hand and start writing down, what the do you want? What does a high five life look like to you? And you know what's interesting about using the term a high five life? You know exactly what that means. I don't even have to explain it. It's a life where every day, even on the hard days, you still want to wake up and high five what's happening. You're still waking up surrounded by people and playing a game that's worth playing to you. It's personal to you. And I'm here to tell you, you start to develop the daily habits of encouraging yourself. What if it all works out? What if this is actually the best decision I've ever made? What if it's really difficult and going through this is going to make me a better version of myself? What if 6 months from now, after I make this change, I'm going to look in the mirror and it's not that you're not going to recognize yourself. You ready? You're actually going to recognize yourself. The you that's in there, the one that you're ignoring and criticizing. What if it all works out for you? That's my message for you today. I want you to take on that high five attitude. What if it all works out for you? I'm sitting here high-fiving you every step of the way because I believe that something amazing
is happening in your life. I sense something extraordinary is about to happen for you. And when you start to leverage a high five attitude, what if it works out? What if this is the best decision I've ever made? A really difficult one. But what if this is the best decision I've ever made? You know, I love to say that you're one decision away from a different life. So make the decision away to swat away those negative thoughts and bring up that high five attitude. What if it all works out for me? Believe. Anchor down in hope and optimism and faith and in celebration of yourself and your ability to pivot your life anytime you choose. That's what's available to you. The second you decide to just get that negative shit out of your mind and adopt that high five attitude, because I do believe that I sense something incredible, extraordinary is going to happen for you. But first, you got to start to say, what if it works out for me? What if this is the best decision I've ever made? What if I place a bet on myself for a change? Wouldn't that be cool? I think it would be.
You say that we aren't broken, yet we are blocked. And I hear that a lot about being blocked. And you have something called the LENT acronym to explain it, LENT. So what exactly is that?
So lint is just like, if you think about a dryer, right?
Yeah.
A dryer will stop working if it gets blocked by too much lint in its filter.
Mhm.
And it's not broken. You just have to clear out the lint so that things can flow freely. Well, we all have mental lint. Mental lint are all the negative things that have happened to us and the thoughts that we have about them that make you lose inspiration. So lint stands for lose inspiration due to negative thoughts. And so whether or not those negative thoughts and experiences are jealousy or self-doubt or people-pleasing or fear or procrastination or guilt or shame or trauma or anxiety or abuse, like all of these things that happen in the course of your life, they build up and they start to block your true spirit and your energy and your vitality and your natural confidence that you were born with. And when you get to work using the high five literally, just like brushing your teeth clears the gunk out of your mouth, the high five uses science to clear all of that negative residue that is built up in your life that is keeping you from flowing freely towards the things that are meant for you. It's keeping you from feeling the joy and the contentment that you so deserve and are wired to feel. And so the high five habit is not going to fix all your problems. It's not going to change the circumstances of your life. What it does is it changes you. It changes you and it helps you become more resilient and confident so you can face the issues that you're dealing with and the obstacles that you're facing right now. And when you can show up with a high five attitude, grounded in optimism and resilience, just like a player starts a game feeling like, I can do this. I'm going to throw myself into this. I can face this. I'm going to show up today. Everything in your life changes.
Yes. Right. It starts with you, and then the exterior begins to change.
Absolutely.
Your positivity, right? And that's what I found through my healing and pulling myself out of a victim role, which I played very, very well. And I lived in that anger and hurt, and everyone was doing me wrong. And it was once I started doing that internal work and changing myself and loving myself. That was a huge one, to find love for myself. Everything in my life started changing for the better.
Absolutely. Because the relationship that you have with yourself is the foundation of every relationship you have in life. If you begin your day by rejecting yourself or criticizing yourself, that creates tremendous insecurity in your identity. That's why you're a people pleaser. People pleasing has nothing to do with other people. It's all about you managing your own insecurity. You're seeking validation and acknowledgement and love outside of yourself because you can't give those things to yourself. When, as Marcy just said, you can start to practice things that bring the validation, the acceptance, the awareness, and the love back home inside of you, the most remarkable thing happens. You discover this inner strength, because if you like yourself, it doesn't matter if somebody else likes you, because their dislike of you doesn't change the fact that you like yourself. If you love yourself, it doesn't matter if somebody stops loving you or falls out of love with you, because you don't need that to love yourself.
Being stuck is one of the most universal feelings of the human experience, and nobody understands what it is.
What is it?
Oh, it's amazing when you hear this. It's like, pew. So remember how we've talked about how the human beings have this crazy amount of natural intelligence wired into us. And inside your body, we've talked about one of the signals, anxiety. Anxiety is a signal that means pay attention. That's why you go into fight or flight. You're in an alert mode, okay? That's all it is. It's a signal, an alarm system. And your body has a sophisticated system of signals and alarms. And they're all tied to fundamental needs. Anxiety is tied to your fundamental need for safety. That's why it's a signal. Let's talk about your most important fundamental needs. Let's go right back to Psychology 101, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need food or else you die. So when you need food, what is the signal that your body sends you?
Hunger.
When you need water, what is the signal?
Thirst.
When you need air, you catching your breath. When you need rest, what do you feel?
I'm tired.
When you need connection, what do you feel?
Lonely.
Human beings are designed to grow. When you stop growing, what do you feel? Stuck.
Yeah. I was going to say stagnant, but I guess stuck is,
Or stagnant.
Yeah.
Or still.
Trapped, I guess, is,
Yeah. Feeling stuck is a signal that you've stopped growing. That's it. And when most people feel stuck, since they don't understand that it's tied to a fundamental need for growth, we believe it's an existential crisis and we blow up our lives. For most human beings, what actually will get you feeling like you're not stuck is having something in the future that you're looking forward to. Or taking a class where you're learning something, or changing a routine so that you try a new class at the gym. Learning anything gets you back in touch with a fundamental need. It makes you start to feel like things are moving. And from that place of feeling a little bit more empowered, you'll be able to make better decisions about what big things need to change in your life.
And is that, you would also describe that as a moment where your life has like an absence of purpose? I think about various examples, Olympians that come back from the Olympics and they're like 80% chance of depression after they've, and then I think about people who have, lost purpose in their lives for whatever reason, been fired from their jobs or whatever, or people that are in jobs that are, absent of purpose completely, that feeling of being stuck. And then we talked also about the importance of goals and ambitions going forward. When humans don't have that forward ambition or that thing to look forward to in the future, and their current situation lacks purpose, they become very psychologically disorientated, would be the way I'd describe it.
I have a different take on purpose. I think everybody's purpose is exactly the same.
What is that?
I think your purpose is to share your true self, to be fully seen. And for the Olympian, when you are training and you're in that arena, that is an experience of being seen. And for most people that are lacking purpose, they feel profoundly invisible. And being seen fundamentally comes back to whether or not you even see yourself. And when you start to feel empowered and you start to see yourself and meet you where you are, what happens is every day that you're able to stand with yourself, to accept where you are, to give yourself the compassion, to give yourself the support and the love and the respect and the worthiness that you deserve, you're going to go out into the world and share more of yourself. That Olympic athlete is sharing more of themselves. And so I think our purpose in life is to come back home to ourselves, to reconnect with ourselves, and to empower ourselves to go back out into the world and share our stories and share our experiences and share our full selves with the rest of the world.
Worries, stress, or anxiety about money affects your life. And honestly, if you're watching this, you should put a thumbs up in the comments, because worries, stress, and anxiety about money, it impacts everybody's life. In fact, in a recent survey, I don't have it here in front of me, but in a recent survey, I read that I think it was done by Forbes, 87% of people that were asked said that they feel some level of stress about money worries. Now, I'm going to talk to you about how to deal with money worries, but I want to draw a line in the sand real quick about what kind of money worries I'm talking about and what kind I'm not. If you are in a situation right now that is acute, you have no money, you are unemployed, and you've run out of money. You work for the government and you haven't gotten your paycheck last week, and it doesn't look like you're getting one this week. And frankly, it's totally unacceptable that this is happening. And you're starting to panic because you are running out of money. And like most people, at least in the United States, you're one paycheck away from not being able to pay your bills. That was me 10 years ago. If that's you, you don't have money worries, you have a money problem. And the only thing that will solve the very real problem that you have is taking action and being super proactive, even though you're scared right now and you're frustrated right now, being super proactive to get the help that you need, to get the services that you need. If you need to go to a food pantry, do not let pride get in your way. One of the things that happens when people have money problems is that they are so confronted by the problem and the reality of the situation that they avoid dealing with it, because facing it head on and realizing that you got to call family members for help right now because it's that scary. You got to go to the daycare center and say, hey, you know I'm good for the money. I know you're a small business, but my God, until I get paid next, can you cut me some slack and let my daughter still go to school at daycare here so that I can show up at work at the airport or show up at the military? So, you need to face it head on if you have money problems. Okay? Got it? Good. Because that's the only way that money problems actually get fixed, is when you get proactive and instead of being scared and avoiding the situation, you hit it head on and you have those hard conversations with yourself and you start reaching out and asking for help. In this training, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the money anxiety that most of us struggle with. And that's the habit that you have, your default mode of thinking about money that stresses you out. You have a job, you're getting a paycheck, you're making the ends meet, and you worry about it all the time. You go into work and you want to ask for a raise, but you're so worried about your worth that you convince yourself you don't deserve the money, so you don't ask for it. That it's your mental relationship to money itself and how you feel about yourself and your own self-worth, and how that mindset impacts how you behave and how you think about money. That is what we're talking about in this training. And so there's a couple things that I want to call your attention to. Number one, and I will tell you what videos I want you to watch. Any thinking pattern that you have that doesn't serve you can be changed. And that's what you're learning in Mindset Reset. And if you have a negative thinking pattern about money, that is a thinking pattern that you want to change. Because when you change how you think about money, whether or not you deserve it, whether or not if you work hard you'll make it, whether or not it's going to turn out for you, whether or not you're disciplined about what you spend your money on, and whether or not you save it. If you change how you think about money, you'll make a hell of a lot more of it. I'm going to tell you that right now. And so if there's an area of your life that you really want to take a deliberate look at, it's how does money trigger you to think? And how does your personal psychology and your default mindset trigger you to think about money and whether or not you deserve it? And whether, I know so many of you think, how many of you think I'm not good with money? I had that story for a long time. I'm just not good with money. And that default way of thinking, it's not surprising you're taking mindset reset. If you think you're not good about money, guess what? You won't be. If you think it, you will behave consistently with it. That's how this works, which is why we want to change how you think so that you change how you behave. So here's a couple things about your mindset related to money. It's like your mindset related to anything else. It's just that money is a huge trigger for most of us. There's two kinds of worries, and we've already covered this, and I'm going to refer you back to the video about this. You're going to go back to videos 13 and video 14 on this, okay? And so there's only two kinds of worries. Video 13, video 14. I want you to look at this. Two kinds of worries. There's productive worrying and there's destructive worrying. Too many of you worry about money and it is destructive. Your worries about money make you spend money that you don't have. Your worries about money talk you into doing things that are not smart with money. Your worries about money have you undervalue what you think you should be paid. Your worries about money keep you trapped in your head instead of doing things that will make you more money. And so we got to change this, because I guarantee you that the reason why you have a destructive habit of worrying about money has something to do with how you were trained to think about money or think about yourself from your past. So again, if you worry about money and it empowers you to make more of it and it's not making you unhealthy to worry about it, fantastic. That's a productive form of worrying, because worrying can be productive if it signals and triggers you to take action to fix a particular problem. Worrying is destructive if it makes you feel bad about yourself, if it makes you do things that are contrary to your goals, if it makes you stressed out. And I bet that you have the destructive kind of worrying. So now let's go a little bit deeper. What do you do if you've got a habit of having a destructive pattern of worrying about money, of thinking you're unworthy, of telling yourself you're not successful, of telling yourself you're not going to make it, of buying things that you can't afford, but you buy it as a way to validate yourself because you feel bad about yourself? What I want you to do is I want you to go back and repeat some of the exercises that we did in the very beginning of the program. So if you haven't signed up for Mindset Reset, no problem. There's no race. You haven't fallen behind. There's plenty of time. You can do this at your pace. All of the videos are available for free. They're all on our YouTube channel. They're all on our Facebook pages. And if you go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset, you will get an email from us that has amazingly helpful links that will give you the playlist of everything. It's like, boom, just like that. So go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset. If you go to videos 1 through 8, you will see the foundational training that we did on the science of thinking, on your default mindset, on worrying, on all kinds of really important skills and science for you to understand. And it's super easy. And you really need to go watch this stuff. The second thing is that from video 13 on, we covered the morning routine from 9 until 11. That's it. No, we did a lot longer. 9 until video 12. We did a ton of stuff on the morning routine and on the journaling method that I use. You can revisit 9 through 12 if you want to check that out. But really, we started picking up on worrying and anxiety and the connection between those two things at video 13. So if money is something you worry about, you're going to look at video 13 and video 14. And I'm going to explain the assignments, but this is going to help you go back and identify why you are triggered by money. You see, something happened to you. And in video 14, we talk a lot about how you identify the triggers that cause you to do things that you want to stop doing. And I want to say something very quickly about triggers and about the work that you're doing. You are not fixing yourself, okay? When you do a mindset reset, you're not fixing yourself because you, my friend, are not broken. You are exactly where you need to be right now. You have all of the lessons from your life, from all the great things, all the failures, everything. You're exactly where you need to be right now in your life in order to get to the next level that you want to get to. We're not fixing you. We're fixing patterns from your past that no longer serve you right now and will not help you get to your future. So what we want to fix and change is we want to fix and change the patterns that get triggered by your past that aren't going to help you get to your future. And so if you look at video 13 and you look at video 14, I walk you through some exercises where you go through your day and you identify all the things that trigger you related to, and in this case, it's going to be money. So what I want you to do today or tomorrow, whenever you have time, is I want you to wake up after you do your morning routine, and I want you to go through your day and notice all day long what triggers you to worry or make yourself wrong or think about in a negative way money. What is it? Is it the price of coffee and telling yourself you shouldn't do it? Is it looking at your paycheck? Is it checking your bank balance? Is it looking at things catching yourself looking at things you can't afford? What is it that triggers you? Is it seeing other people in expensive clothing and making yourself wrong? What about money triggers you? And then you're going to ask yourself the question that I already taught you to ask in videos 13 and 14. And that question is, don't say what's wrong with me about money. Why can't I make money? Don't ask yourself those questions, which are basically like punching yourself in the face. Ask yourself this question. What happened to me to make me believe that I'm not worth making money? What happened to me that made me believe that I'm not smart enough to be successful? What happened to me that makes me believe that I need to buy something in order to feel good about myself? Because there is a connection between something that happened to you and the association that it triggered with money. And we got to get to that pattern because that's the pattern that we need to fix. And when you start to work on the pattern, so being deliberate about not buying stuff that you don't need and coming up with something else that you're going to do instead to make yourself feel good. Being deliberate about making a plan to go ask for that raise or making a plan every day to work on your multi-level marketing business or your side hustle project so that every day, instead of having yourself be triggered by money and the lack of money and the fact that you haven't made a sale yet, that you're actually in action, making things happen so that you do make the money. This is how you change the patterns around money that are triggered by your negative belief system and triggered by your self-doubt. This is how you manifest properly, by the way. Right here. You have to visualize in your mind writing the check and feeling the pain in your legs of uncertainty. You have to visualize in your mind sitting in that plane seat, flying to a conference, feeling the pit in your stomach, being worried about whether or not anyone's going to take you seriously because there's all these big podcasters there. You need to feel your chest contract and squeeze in as you walk up to somebody that you deeply admire and you start a conversation, or you walk up to an event organizer and say, I'd like to apply to be on a panel next year. How do I do that? And your chest gets really tight because you feel like you don't belong there because you don't have the numbers yet, or whatever your stupid story is. When you picture that in your mind and you feel the negative sensation in your body, you are doing resistance training. This is how you align your mind, body, and spirit to not resist the hard stuff. Here's a cool fact about your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between you actually spending the money, buying the plane ticket, getting on the plane and flying to that event, or you imagining it in your mind. And when you run through the hard things that you're avoiding in your mind and you allow yourself to feel the negative sensation in your body, you are training and mentally rehearsing the exact same way Olympic athletes do with the 9 sports psychologists that the U.S. Olympic team has to help our athletes prepare. You are mentally rehearsing before the actual event so that your mind and your body are trained to anticipate and push right on through all the stuff that's scary because you've already rehearsed it. That's how you use manifesting to help you do the work to get what you want.
Wow. I'm so grateful that we kind of brought that up and that you helped walk me through this.
What did you get out of that?
Well, I became aware of not only what I need to do, but like what's the fear that's attached to it.
What is the fear?
Well, the fear is always going to be uncertainty or scarcity, because I think the one thing that's been beneficial to me in my life is that I've always had my back against the wall, from being somebody who was a convicted felon in jail, not growing up with a ton of money, that sort of thing, where I've always been forced to just hustle, work, where I'm used to this kind of situation. But on the flip side, the negative is I'm so used to being stressed because I grew up in a stressful environment. I put myself in a stressful environment from selling drugs and doing drugs for a majority of my life when I was younger, so that a lot of times now I've had to become aware of when I'm creating more stress around something that's a good thing instead of something that I would have seen back in the day as something that was bad or whatever.
Can I unpack that?
Sure.
So you just said that you realize that you're used to having your back up against the wall. That having been a kid that grew up in a very chaotic household, who then turned to dealing drugs, who then got arrested and was convicted as a felon and served time behind bars, all of which I'm very familiar with because I used to be a public defender in Manhattan. So I have not served time, but I have represented people accused of crimes and who have committed crimes and who have served time for a large part of my career. And one of the things that I want to point out is that you were attracted to the chaos of selling drugs because it's all you knew as a kid in your home and it felt familiar. And this is why it can be really challenging to break old patterns. And that's because patterns are familiar. And if they're familiar, they just repeat automatically without you even realizing it. And so here you are now. How many years have you been out of jail?
Gosh, so December 26th just marked 13 years.
So 13 years. On December 26th, it was 13 years since you were released from federal prison.
Or
Amazing.
Or county jail, yeah, but.
Okay, well, county jail.
Yeah.
It's still a felony conviction.
Yep.
13 years, you're behind bars. You have turned your entire life around, but there is one pattern that still runs your life. And the pattern that runs your life is chaos. And if you don't identify that chaos and friction and feeling on edge is what you're so familiar with, if you don't identify that now and recognize all the places in your business where you are creating chaos, creating friction, and putting yourself on edge, that pattern will keep you from living into your full potential. And so here's what I would do. I would make a list of every aspect of your daily life or business that creates chaos, that causes friction internally, or leaves you feeling on edge. And then I would do the work this year to put systems, people, process in place so that you create new patterns. I can relate to this so profoundly, not because I've served time behind bars, but because, like so many people, having stored trauma from being molested as a kid, when I was 9 years old, in my nervous system. I have lived my whole life from the age of 9 till about 46 when I first started understanding that this was stored trauma, and understanding that my anxiety was largely due to the fact that when that happened to me at the age of 9, my nervous system went from calm and cool and resting to on edge, stressed out, fight or flight. And it probably never flipped off of that. My dominant pattern, Doug, is being busy and being on the run and being on the move, because if I can be 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else, I'm going to be safe. And so the thing that doesn't work in my life is that my whole business, up until very recently, was organized around a pattern that's Mel's running to catch a plane, Mel's running to do this, Mel's on the move. And I hated how it felt, but I had no idea how to stop being so busy and stop being on the run, because I equated being on the run with safety and with control. And it's the opposite. You see, these patterns that we develop when we're a kid made us feel safe when we were a kid because they were familiar. But now that they're an adult, they're screwing up our lives. And so I have gone through the same exercise very recently. What are all the things in my business and that I'm doing in my day-to-day life that I hate? What are the things that cause friction? Where are there, where is this behavior making me miserable? And now I am going to work with removing all the friction, removing all the busyness. And I'm going to tell you first of all, what are you getting out of me sharing this?
Well, I'm very thankful because my audience is going to totally relate to this, and that's kind of why I shared what I shared, because there's so many people that struggle with this very thing. And I was very fortunate that I was in a therapist's office probably, I don't remember, 6 or 7 years ago, and I was stressed, and I had nothing to be stressed about. I was making good money, I was writing books, and I had just written my first book, and my therapist was like, what was your childhood like? I was like, my parents got divorced. And I just started explaining what happened. She's like, you grew up in chaos. So like you said, your nervous system is going to seek out more chaos. And then it began to make sense, because she was like, you have a certain level of homeostasis that your body is used to, and your body is always going to revert back to that. You have to create a new normal. And I was fortunate that I learned, I'm still aware of it. And I think just through, I'm aware of it, and I still make mistakes based on it, just because I'm still working through a lot of that. But there's a lot of people that, as you're saying that, they never figure it out, because they're like, they just accept the fact they're always going to be stressed.
You don't have to be. Like, I think the place, if you want to heal, if you want to be happier, the place to really focus all your work on is regulating your nervous system. And there's lots of ways you can do it. You can do it through cold exposure therapy, by climbing into an ice bath and learning how to breathe yourself through the discomfort for 30 seconds to a minute. You can do it through EMDR. You can do it through guided psychedelic therapies, with a licensed therapist. But you're not going to talk yourself out of a nervous system response. You can also put your hands on your heart. This is something I write about in the High Five Habit, and press on your vagus nerve and say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved, which will bring you back into your body, and it'll flip the switch between your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system back into the parasympathetic nervous system. And so there are things you can do, but understand that these patterns get triggered at an emotional nervous system level before your brain catches up. And so the reason why, for example, when I asked you, hey, visualize yourself writing a check that's scary, and you said, I feel that in my legs, that's your nervous system. That's where your stored tension, trauma, and stress activates. It can be different for everybody. And so, back to the advice I was giving you, you have to write down all the areas where you are unknowingly creating chaos. And I remember when I remember this person said something to me when I first got involved in the speaking business, and my career started to take off. And he said, Mel, you better say yes to every speech you can get, because speakers on the corporate circuit get hot and then they disappear. And this is a fad. And that triggered that, like, I got to go, 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 go. And so for 5 years, I said yes to absolutely everything I possibly could, because my husband and I were in a horrendous financial situation and we desperately needed the money. And I ran myself into the ground, not because I was being intentional, but because this pattern of being busy kicked into full gear, but it was driven by fear. It was driven by fear. And I believe that as much work as you have done on yourself, turning your whole life around and now serving so many people and making a huge difference in building this business, if you dig deep, what drives the fear of spending the money and investing yourself is a deeper fear.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And it's forcing me, or just thinking about it now, it's forcing me to just to reinforce that the work never stops. Like, there's always going to be something that comes up. And I think a lot of people think of healing as they climb this mountain, they put a stake in the ground, they're like, yep, that's it, I'm done. And it's not what happens. And I think that's why a lot of people, they stay stuck and they develop this fixed mindset, because they don't have the humility to look in the mirror and say, like, I need to improve this. This area of my life needs some healing. I need to do some work. And we touched on, obviously, some things that I need to work on personally, and both personally and professionally. But I guess my question back to you is, so the High Five Habit's been out now for several months. We just got through the holidays. What's been like something recently since the book came out where you've had to give yourself a high five and pick yourself back up after you were in a negative self-talk loop, you were feeling low about yourself? Was there something? And if so, what was it?
It's basically every day.
Yeah.
You just said you've written the High Five Habit. It's a wildly successful book. Is there a moment that you have to pick yourself back up? The reason why I start every day with a high five in the mirror as part of my morning routine, and I do it like I've repeated it so many times, I don't even think about it, because it's just like brushing my teeth. I brush my teeth. I wouldn't even think about starting my day without brushing my teeth. I wouldn't think about starting my day without high-fiving myself in the mirror and experiencing the benefit neurologically and chemically to what it does. I need one every day. Life is fucking hard. I mean, just this week, I have one daughter who has started a new job after graduating from college, having had 2 years of her college experience imploded. And she is starting remote at a large tech company. She is profoundly capable, and she's a nervous wreck. And that makes me feel sad and distracted and upset for her. We have another daughter who is a junior in college and which basically means she's had 6 months of a traditional college experience, who just got word that school is now pushed back a week. It's starting remote, that Rush is online, just things that seem trivial, but it's her whole world. And so her trying to grapple with how to make sense of the ever-changing world that we live in. I was supposed to fly down and see my parents, who are on the panhandle of Florida this weekend. And given the surge that we're in the middle of, I think I need to push this thing off, because there's connections involved, and I don't want to spend the weekend in the airport. And it's a lot of money to fly down there right now. And not that I don't have it, but I'm kind of feeling like, God, I don't want to disappoint my mom, but I really don't want to spend 2 days in an airport. And what do I do? And so it's like, Mel, come on, make the phone call. Every single day, life is going to throw situations, emotions, distractions, stuff at you that you can't control. And the whole game is how you support yourself in responding to it. And so I have developed the skill of being so in tune with my nervous system. And when I'm kind of in my body and feeling comfortable in my own skin, and when I am triggered and I go on edge. And the second I feel myself go on edge, I have a skill of putting myself in pause, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and checking in with myself and getting aware of what is going on. And let's take the example of why, the high five help this morning of feeling on edge about calling my parents, who we haven't seen since end of September, and saying, I think we should push this off 3 weeks. It's my mother's birthday. I deeply miss them. I want to see them. And I know in my heart the right decision is to push this off a couple weeks. And yet I still feel the emotional trigger. Am I going to disappoint somebody? Does that mean I'm a bad daughter? Am I a selfish jerk for doing this? All of which could either settle in and put me on edge all day, or I could recognize that's what happens and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. I'm going to do what works and what feels right for me. I know I'm a good daughter, and I know that this is the right decision, and my mom and dad can have their reaction. And when I see them 3 weeks from now, when there are less flight delays and the weather is better and I have more time to spend with them, we won't even remember the moment I made the phone call and said. So every single day, you have to practice these skills because life is always changing. Like, that's why I like thinking about it like skills. Writing words on a piece of paper is a skill. You use it every day. Scrolling through your phone is a skill. You use it and practice it every single day. Drinking a cup of water is a skill. You use it and practice every single day. Self-awareness is a skill. Recognizing when you're on edge is a skill. Knowing how to come and get back into your body and become aware of what's triggering you and then work through it and choose how to respond based on your values, that's a skill. And in life, you need to draw upon, strengthen, and practice these types of skills every single day.
So beautifully said. And thank you so much for opening up and sharing that. Because I think that's something that a lot of people, especially the last few years, have struggled with. It's people pleasing, right? Like being afraid of doing the right thing for themselves because they fear it's going to hurt somebody else. And then also regulating yourself and not creating more stress in your life, which then, you and I have both struggled with coping with substances, to help numb anxiety, stress, and that's not good either. And there's a lot of people that do that. So if you were to say you had like one or two things other than the 5-second rule that when you're feeling emotionally charged, you give yourself the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you do something to kind of get your body back to some sort of stability, like what would those things be?
Okay, so in a moment of stress, what are the top tools that you can use? I can think of a number of them. You already mentioned the first one. So the first one is the 5-second rule. Simply counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, interrupts your nervous system response and it interrupts the racing thoughts. And it gives you just a moment where you can choose what you do next. And so you could count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and take an action to respond. Or what I often do is I count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to stop the racing in my mind and to stop my heart from taking off in terms of flooding my body, with adrenaline and cortisol and all this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I put myself in pause. I take a deep breath and I just do nothing for a minute. Deciding not to react is a powerful way to react. gathering yourself is a power move. And so that's number one. The second thing that you can do in moments where you get triggered or stressed or you feel the emotional wave come on, get outside, put your phone in your back pocket, preferably turn it off, and take a walk. Simply getting outside for 10 minutes will slow your breathing down. It will raise your gaze and attention on something other than the whatever situation, train wreck that just happened, or the phone call you need to make, or the text you just got. A 10-minute walk outside will work wonders in settling your mind and your body. A third thing that you can do is you can get out a blank piece of paper and you can do what I call a brain dump. Get all that crap that you're thinking out of your mind and just write and write and write, just as if you are barfing after a big night of drinking. Just barf it all out on a piece of paper. Get it out of your head. And as you stop writing, ask yourself anything else and just keep writing. And it'll just be a mishmash of stuff, but eventually you'll get it out of your head and your body and you will calm down. A fourth thing that you can do, if you have a bathtub, you can draw a bath, and soaking in a hot tub will stimulate your vagus nerve and it will settle your body. A fifth thing that you could do is you can run a cold shower and step into a cold shower. Let me tell you something. I don't care how horrible that text was that your ex just sent you. If you step into a cold shower, it is so shocking that the only thing that your brain and your nervous system will pay attention to is the cold shower. Get in there and stand in there for 30 seconds to a minute and breathe through it. And something miraculous will happen. You will literally feel a flood wash over your body. Those are 5 free things that you can do that will help you take control in a moment where life has triggered you and made you scared or anxious or freaked out or whatever. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.